And welcome back, everybody, to a podcast in space and time. I'm Holden B. Huffman.
And I'm Kendal Coffee.
And man, you sound so crisp.
Don't I just sound absolutely luscious and lusty and lethargic?
Yeah.
Just sound... I've got a new mic, and...
You sound so luxurious. Yeah.
Luxurious, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, we got a mic for Kendal now, because we're still going through COVID, which I don't think is ever going to end. But I mean, honestly, we could do this together, but it's so much more convenient to do it through Zoom.
It really kind of is.
Like, we don't have to schedule a big meetup or anything. We can just be like, hey, you want to record this afternoon? Sure.
And we can both have, like, our own...
Space
and our own, like... notes in front of us and all that.
Yeah. It's really nice. I didn't think we would continue doing it like this. Like, once it was okay enough to be able to do it together, I was going to do it together, but I don't think we should now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just so much more convenient to not do it. Not that I don't love looking at your beautiful face, but
oh, thank you.
Also, given that this is a podcast, we're like legally required to discuss any audio changes.
Yeah, we kind of are.
That's something I've noticed with like, I think I listen to more podcasts than you do, but like pretty much
you definitely do.
Every podcast that where I've like started from the beginning and like, listen through, there's at some point they kind of have a discussion about their new, better audio sound setup.
Yeah, it was because they want people to notice.
Listen, I want y'all to fully appreciate my just luxurious dulcet tones now that I'm not recording through a bad quality MacBook microphone.
Well, back to Doctor Who.
Back to Doctor Who.
Today we're on Series 2, Episode 3, School Reunion, written by Toby Whithouse. I think maybe that's how you pronounce it? Whitehouse, Whithouse. There's no E, so I'm assuming Whithouse.
Whithouse sounds right to me.
Mm-hmm. Which I've got to say, I'm a fan of his writing and his future episodes. Like, he's written, in my opinion, he's written some good, solid episodes. Some of them, maybe not so much, but a lot of them I'm really quite fond of.
Yeah, I actually have not even looked through his writing credits. I'm looking now, but yeah, there's some solid episodes in here.
Yeah.
All of these that he's written, none of them are like my favorites, but
right.
None of them are like
horrible.
Yeah, they're all solid. They're like solid sort of mid-season episodes that I think probably my favorite, and we'll talk about this one down the line, but probably my favorite is the God Complex.
Oh yeah, he did do that one. That was a very good episode.
That's a great episode. But anyway, yeah, School Reunion. I really like this one. Physics. This is definitely one of those episodes that both does a great job of being kind of a self-contained story, but also really it works very well within like the greater context of Doctor Who. Like, it pulls in kind of some classic Who stuff with Sarah Jane, with K9.
Right.
You definitely get that nostalgia and that this return of these beloved characters without it feeling like that's all there is to it. It's not just the nostalgia, but the nostalgia is there and it really ties into the theme of the episode. And this isn't really something we've talked about, but I mean, Doctor Who is sometimes a very theme-driven show, but not super often.
We haven't really had many episodes yet that are very theme-heady, except for like The Long Game, which was just overbearingly theme.
Right. This one has, I mean, it's got a great theme. It's, where we see sort of this ideology of the Doctor who's like kind of very afraid of change, kind of opposed to it. versus this villain who's like all about change and all about
right.
like
Mhm.
you know new things and doing things differently. And
Right.
it's very interesting to see.
And he's eating children, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's the villain, like,
Right.
so obviously, like, his ideology is wrong in that way. But it's interesting to see an episode where the Doctor kind of like learns something from the villain.
Yeah. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I found that really interesting in the story when, like, obviously the villain's wrong and is doing bad things, but like there's still something to learn from their point of view.
Yeah. And like and also the whole thing with Sarah Jane of just like leaving her at home and taking off and just leaving her and never coming back.
Yeah. This is something I guess New Who hasn't really, or this is the first time New Who's really addressing like what happens.
It was never addressed in Classic Who either.
Okay, so this would be the first time Doctor Who has actually addressed like what happens to the companions after the Doctor leaves.
Because like all the other companions I can think of, like the major ones that have left, there was Susan, who left and was never seen again until like a special, but that was just a special, and it was timey-wimey stuff. Like she left because she fell in love with someone,
right?
In the context of the show, in reality, the actress wanted to move on to different things, but and then I can't remember what the dude's name was, but he traveled with the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davidson's, and he just straight up died. He was a kid. So
the actor died, or the
the character. They killed the character.
Oh, okay. Off. Yeah.
It was a Cyberman episode. I can't remember the name of it. I actually own that episode, but I can't remember the name.
But yeah, so I think it's cool to see that, and it's I think it's one of the advantages of a show that's gone as long as Doctor Who has, is like you can have episodes like that where characters are reunited in this way.
It's a time travel show. You can do that.
Yeah, and also just like a long running show. If this was a show that this was literally its second season overall, like it would be weird to have this kind of episode. But because Doctor Who has so much history, and like we can see these old characters return, and like they've aged, and they've had their own lives, and
we actually see some other characters later on in the show. I'm not going to go into specifics right now just because of spoilers, but we do see others, maybe not in actual Doctor Who. There is one Doctor Who companion that came back in the Sarah Jane Adventures, the spinoff with Sarah Jane Smith. Like, we had another companion come back in that show.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's a very unique opportunity for a show like this. It was cool to see. Like, I'm not, super into old Who. I've seen a bit of it, but even I can really appreciate seeing Sarah Jane again, and K9, obviously, because K9's very cool.
And this is actually the first time we get something really relevant from Classic Who. Like, we had a couple things earlier, and mainly in the last season, like a Dalek and mention of the Time Lords, but you don't really, and Gallifrey, but you don't really know it's connected. Like, you think it might just be like a soft reboot, like they're not going to mention it. Like anything in the past. You don't know that.
Right. Yeah.
And this is the first time you really get a solid, this is 100% a continuation and not just like a soft reboot.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, with things like the Daleks and the Time Lords, those are kind of big elements to the show. But yeah, this is the first time we get like a more specific anchoring point to old Who, with Sarah Jane and with K9. Like bringing back specific characters who have such a close connection with the Doctor.
Right.
I loved the scene where Sarah Jane sees the TARDIS, and then she
her
turns
reaction
and the Doctor's there.
Oof. And
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I thought Elizabeth Sladen's acting in that moment was amazing.
Yes, rest in peace. She died like 2011, I think. She was supposed to do one last season of Sarah Jane Adventures, but she passed away before they could.
Yeah, she passed away April 2011.
Yep.
65 too. That's I mean that's
relatively young. Yeah.
Right.
Milo was the Hermione of that group.
Milo. I loved Milo.
Even though we only got one scene with Milo.
Yeah. There were several of the kids that they did kind of a good job of like having them stand out, even though there was like a lot of kids and a lot of characters. Who was the other kid? The one with the glasses?
Kenny.
I thought Kenny was great as well.
I think it was either Benny, but I think it was Kenny. I'm pretty sure there was a k at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it was Kenny.
Yeah.
Benny. Yeah, Joe.
Benny. Have you seen my Benny? Actor? Have you seen my Benny?
Benny.
Benny. Sorry, that's not really a spoiler, but everyone that's seen Orphan 55 understands that.
Benny.
Benny. And oh gosh, that lift up when David Tennant was getting his chips, and just Rose is just like, I hate you.
I think this is one of the first times we've seen Rose be like properly annoyed with the Doctor.
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of nice.
I know it was a little bit refreshing. Yeah,
it was, because we always see her do that to Mickey, and it's kind of nice for Mickey to get a little revenge.
And I think too, I mean, this episode, Rose really sees the Doctor differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little bit of the rose-colored glasses have bad, but a bit of the rose-colored glasses have come off on this one.
I get it.
I did not even intend for that, but yeah, like she sees, especially her talking to Sarah Jane, and they had that great scene where they're kind of like roasting the Doctor, you know. Does he do the thing where he'll strike bits of the TARDIS? And
yes, I'm like, do you two want to be alone? It's one of my favorite lines from Rose.
That's such a good line. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Doctor comes in and they both just like burst out laughing in his face.
Like Mickey said, the misses and the X.
Yeah.
Okay, how did Mickey get a hold of secretive files and everything? Like, I understand in like Aliens of London in World War III, the Doctor gave him all the information he needed to get into the systems, but we don't see that here. And like, is it just supposed to be a thing we take for granted of like, okay, I guess the Doctor gave him that, but
yeah, Mickey seems to have such a like mysterious set of skills that like are never really properly explained.
I have a particular set of skills.
I
will find you and I will kill you.
Good luck.
Little Liam Neeson.
Yeah, it's weird that they like never. I feel like Mickey is either he's so weirdly utilized in this show, and this is
God.
There's been a couple episodes. Dog. Yeah, I'm glad they acknowledged it, but there's been a couple episodes where like, you know, he's been really more useful. I hate to use the word useful, but like a little more important to the plot.
Yeah, I had that written down, like, yay, Mickey's actually useful.
Yeah, and I wish we saw more of that, because I really like his character, and I think he's got a lot. He's got a lot to contribute to the team if they would just like let him do things and not just be the kind of tag along dunce.
Well, hey, he is going to be on the TARDIS now, so
yeah, so we'll get a couple of good episodes with him.
Hey, the people don't know that. That's a spoiler. People don't know that.
I mean, I don't know that. I'm just like making an assumption here.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember what happens in this season.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Well, I was going to say something, but that's going to be more down the line near the end of the season. I'm going to say that. Another Torchwood reference.
Yes.
She does that. She just explodes randomly. It's just a thing. Just ignore it.
Just ignore it. It's fine. Let's see what else.
One more thing about Sarah Jane, real quick. Her last appearance was, I don't remember what the name of the episode was with the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, but technically her last appearance was in the Five Doctors. I think maybe it was the 20th anniversary special.
Okay.
There were 5 doctors present. Technically 4, but technically 5 at the same time. That was right after Tom Baker left the show, and he's left on a sour note. Mm-hmm. So he didn't return. So they just used footage from a unreleased episode of him for a bit of it.
That's like slightly shady, Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like, so he was barely in that episode. Yeah. K9, beautiful as always.
K9 is beautiful. I'm glad that K9 didn't just explode and was gone forever. I really like the scene where where K9 was rebuilt and Sarah and him, you get to see that they're going to go on adventures together.
Mm-hmm. I'm no dinner lady. I don't often say that. Funny line. Shooty dog thing. Ignore the shooty dog thing.
He has a name. His name is K9, and he asks you respect his life choices. Let's say
that's another that's another Toby Whithouse episode, actually.
It is, yeah. Yep. I realized that after I said it. I was like, oh,
yeah,
same author.
Oh, one of my favorite lines from the Doctor was about "You wither and die. You can grow. You can spend the rest of your life with me, but I can't spend the rest of my life with you."
Yeah, I had that one written down as well.
That's the curse of the Time Lords. Like, that is such truth, and like totally understandable why he just leaves companions, because he doesn't want to say goodbye.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to lose them and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was a great line and a great like reflection of kind of the Doctor's character on a broader level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they always have to leave in the end. You know, there's no one that they can like travel with forever. Mm-hmm. Even the more immortal characters.
Yep.
You know, we still see, and I'm not going to name names because spoilers, but we still see those characters leave in time eventually too.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the Doctor stays.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. Mr. Finch appealing to the Doctor's ego.
Yeah, I thought that was a great moment.
Mm-hmm. It happens a lot in the show in future episodes, but this is the first time we really see it.
Yeah, and I think if the Doctor has a greatest weakness, it's definitely like their ego. Mm-hmm. Their sense that like they kind of know better than everyone else because they've lived longer and they've been through more.
Remind me to go more into that in the spoiler section.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of good points in that in future episodes, but those are some major spoilers.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Also, Mr. Finch played by Anthony Head, who is King Uther in the show Merlin,
which I have not seen.
It's great. Definitely check it out.
Mm-hmm. I'm watching a lot of stuff right now. I'm still trying to watch Hamilton and everything. Okay, when this is releasing, Hamilton came out like months ago, so don't give me flack for it's been out for like 6 months. Why haven't you watched it yet? I'm like, guys. It's only been out a couple weeks from my point of view.
Yeah. We record these like way in advance. So
Yeah.
like if anybody ever comments on something and we don't respond to it in an episode, then I'm sorry. We're just like, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
One thing, and this is like an issue with Doctor Who. It's not just an issue with this episode, but I feel like Doctor Who in general has kind of a what overly sarcastic productions would call a Planet of the Hats issue.
I've not heard that phrase.
Yeah. If everybody go watch overly sarcastic productions, it's called Trope Talk Planet of the Hats. But basically what it is, it's when you have a like fictional like race or world or society that's kind of homogenous, like they're all kind of have the same values, the same culture,
like the planet as a whole.
Right, yeah. And we see that with in this episode we see that with what were the creatures called? Something with a B.
Chrysilians?
I'm
looking. Chrysilians or something?
Krillitane.
Yeah, Krillitanes. I was close.
Yeah, we see that with the Krillitane. Like, I don't know if there are more Krillitane than the ones we see, but it seems like there's kind of this implication that all the Krillitane have, like, evolved themselves in this same way. And the Mr. Finch also kind of, like, refers to the Time Lords and how, like, the Time Lords are afraid of change, and it's weird because like Gallifrey is a whole planet. There should be like, I don't know how many Time Lords or how many Gallifreyans there are, but Gallifrey is always kind of referred to as like this homogenous group that is all kind of the same, which
I think this really goes back to things like Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because like sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, they definitely have that issue.
Because like in that, like you see Tatooine and like the whole planet is sand. Like you have like each planet are certain environmental areas of Earth. Right. You have Tatooine, that's just a whole desert. You have Hoth, that's like the whole planet's like Antarctica. And like just stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a big issue across science fiction, and I know it's difficult to like, world building is difficult. Like I understand that, but it's always strange to me when you have an entire planet or an entire race who all act exactly the same, because that's definitely not how people work. Like you look at even if you look at like one town in like the U.S., for instance, you're still going to have. All the people in that town are not going to think the same or have the same like ideologies or whatever. But science fiction tends to like do this thing where they simplify it down to one trait.
Yeah, that's true. Though there is something with the Daleks that we will get into later that really does help with that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can make arguments that there are certain Time Lords that are going to kind of break out of that mold. Obviously,
there definitely
the Doctor does.
Yeah. And there's another that, I mean, if you're a classic Who watcher, we could mention it, but since you're going off of a new Who perspective, Kendall, I'm not going to mention it. That person.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about that in the spoiler section too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's not just an issue with Doctor Who, but it's definitely a thing in sci-fi that I get that like it's hard with Doctor Who too, because the show has had the Time Lords forever, and
technically not. except the Time Lords didn't come until the second Doctor's last episode.
Okay.
Because
so, not forever, but a long time.
The very first Doctor, Gallifrey was never mentioned. The Time Lords were never mentioned. No one knew what his race was, and everything. And then the whole regeneration thing, that was just a spur of the moment thing that they decided to do because the actor was getting too old to do the job. So,
yeah, and we are glad they made that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's still there's a long history of the Time Lords being the way they are, and Whovians being Whovians, and the show kind of having things established. It's weird when things deviate from that. So at this point, it would be weird if they broke out of that and said, "Oh, just kidding. All the Time Lords aren't like this. There's actually this whole rich, complex culture in the Time Lords."
Right.
It would be weird to do that at this point.
One other thing I had was why the Doctor needs companions.
Yes.
Sarah Jane broke him out of, because the Doctor was seriously considering helping the Krillitines.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is he's so old and he's been through so much. He forgets. He's been through wars and everything. So, yeah. He's lost a sense of humanity, and that's why he really needs companions, especially in New Who.
Yeah, he needs those very human people to ground him, because I think, he definitely does, in a sense, have a God complex. And
another Toby Whithouse episode. No.
Yeah. But he thinks that he kind of, he knows better than everyone else. And I loved seeing Sarah Jane when she said everything has its time and everything ends, and that kind of brought him back to remembering who he is and what he's here for.
There's a line from a future episode I really wanted to say after you said that, but that's too much of a spoiler.
That's all I really have as far as non-spoiler notes, though.
I have one more. More non-spoiler. Rose's face when Mickey asked to come along. Oh yeah, when she asked him before the Doctor got all handsome and everything, she was like, "No, you should come with us, Mickey. It would be great if you came with us." Now that the Doctor went and got all good looking, not that Eccleston wasn't good looking. She's like, "I don't want you here. You're ruining my style, Mickey Smith." That's another thing with me and Rose. Why I don't like Rose.
Yeah.
It just ding. Yeah.
Oh, Rose.
Okay, let's get into the spoiler section. Spoiler warning. Actually, Kendall, you could probably do the spoiler warning this time since you sound so good and crisp now.
Oh, let me try it.
Okay.
Spoiler warning. Yeah, yours is better.
You need some acting lessons. Remember when I tried to get you to do some voiceovers for something?
Oh, it was awful. Yeah,
it was horrible.
That was very bad.
That was very bad.
I am not an actor.
No, you're not. You're a great artist, but you're not that kind of an artist.
Listen, I can do the arts. I can write pretty good, and I can do some poetry.
You just write the stuff. I'll just speak it.
Okay.
Okay. Lots of hints towards Rose leaving in this season again.
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen to me? No, never.
All right, Doctor.
She's never going to leave.
Nope.
Never.
No, Billy Piper is going to stay on the show forever.
Forever. Forever. Forever. me and SpongeBob striking forever. Sorry, I had to make that reference. Okay. Yeah. That other time when we were talking about, obviously, the Master.
Right.
Who does appear in old Who, classic Who. So, okay, what I was wanting to talk about more about appealing to the Doctor's ego.
Yeah.
It really shows up a lot more in the later stuff, and like about him needing companions as well. If the Doctor ever loses a companion, watch out.
Yeah, I think that's when we definitely see the Doctor at their darkest moments when they've lost a companion recently. Mm-hmm. We see, like, in the Waters of Mars, there's a very we
even see it some in The Runaway Bride, just a little bit, because if it wasn't for Donna being there, the water would have kept on coming, and those spiders would have been dead. We even seen that in the Turn Left episode, because Donna wasn't there.
Right. Yeah, and we see A Good Man Goes to War kind of did this, but Amy wasn't gone.
And he did have Rory.
Yeah. But we see, like, later in that episode, kind of things happen, and we see a very, very dark side of the Doctor there.
Right. And then when he does actually lose Amy and Rory, he actually goes into more exile this time than going on a rampage.
Yeah.
And then when he loses Clara, watch out. Don't be a Time Lord. If you just killed Clara, don't be a Time Lord.
Yeah.
We don't really see that with Bill, though. Like, he has a genuine anger, but
I think Bill got a better ending than most companions, I guess.
She really so I think, okay, this is my other problem with Rose. Everyone says her ending is so sad and tragic. I'm like, come on, she's living her life with the Doctor, who will age with her.
Like, objectively, Rose has definitely one of the better endings.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the most brutal for me would be Donna.
Oh, 100%. Donna Noble has the most tragic ending.
Yeah. I mean, to forget everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, yeah, and have to, like, go back to a perfectly normal life and not even realize what you're missing.
Exactly. And then with Wilfred and Donna's mom knowing all this.
Yeah.
Although I think they probably would have forgotten, because the Doctor rebooted the whole universe in Series 5.
Yeah, that's one thing I still haven't quite figured out exactly how that worked, or, like, who would remember what.
Yeah, and then the whole Waters of Mars thing would have been rebooted too, because the only reason What's-Her-Face went up into space and everything was because of the Dalek invasion.
Yeah.
It's very wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
And I'm a big fan of Series 5, but that's definitely one of my big issues with it is kind of how they do. I mean, I don't want to say a soft reboot, but I guess it kind of is in a way, but in a way it's also a hard reboot, because so much what came before was, like, not undone, but erased. And
there's, like, only a few people that actually remember.
Right. It's
like you've got the Master, you've got Amy, Rory, and River, and I would assume Captain Jack as well.
Yeah. My other spoiler thing that I was going to mention, you probably, like, caught me when I was about to talk about it, but when I was talking about, like, how the Time Lords haven't really changed in the whole course of the show.
Are we talking about the Timeless Children again?
I was just gonna, like, allude to what happens in the Timeless Children, and, like, how people, including myself, reacted to that.
Okay, to be fair, I don't mind the Cybermen Time Lords, I really think that's a cool thing. It's the other stuff in the episode I don't like.
Yeah, just like this whole rewriting of who the Time Lords are and who the Doctor is, and
right, literally, I've seen so many people say, and myself included, they would be 100% okay with the concept of the Timeless Child if it was literally anyone else other than the Doctor.
Yeah, it puts such a like chosen one kind of vibe on the Doctor, which I don't really care for.
Like, it would make it so much more. It would make it so much better if the Master was the Timeless Child. Like,
honestly, that's kind of who I thought it was going to be because of like everything else that happened that season.
Like, think about all the torture and torment the Master's been through, and then for him to realize it's because he's the Timeless Child, and because of all that, that would have been so much better.
Anyway, we should probably save these rants for the actual episode.
Yeah, sorry about that. We do this almost every time. We've done pretty good the last few episodes.
See, I think like by the time we get to the Timeless Children, we should just like make a super cut of all the times we've talked about the Timeless Children in other episodes and just kind of put those together, and that's the episode.
Maybe. No. Oh yeah, more about the Doctor's ego. Sorry, I wasn't really done with that.
Oh yeah.
The other times we see about the Doctor's ego and about like a companion talking him out of things or something was the Water in Mars, which we did discuss.
Yeah.
And then B, the second thing was Death in Heaven, when literally Missy creates an army of the undead. A Cyberman undead army, and literally gives them to the Doctor. So because he knows what's right, he can go fix things. Like, and like you really look at the Doctor and like it's the kind of season where you're like, you don't know what kind of man he is yet. So you don't know if he's going to actually do it.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that more when we actually get into that episode. And just the one thing I said, the line you said, what was that one line you mentioned about Sarah Jane saying,
everything has its time and everything ends.
Every Christmas is last Christmas.
That's
what I want. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
That, oof. Yeah. Oof. Well, do you have anything else, Kendal?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
We could talk about the Timeless Children some more.
No, let's try to save a little more content for that episode.
Let's save something for that episode.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be an actual long time before we get to talk about that episode. We've got to talk about a little bit of it now.
Yeah.
Because like I've added it up. I've went and done like a huge mapping out of what episode will release on what Saturday, and it's not until like 2023 we get to talk about the Timeless Children officially.
There's no way we can wait that long.
Right. I'm like, hey, if we get a larger following and like we can actually like say like quit our jobs to do this or something, sure, we'll get to it a lot sooner. But I highly doubt that's ever going to happen.
Listen, I enjoy doing this. I ain't quitting my job to podcast.
Even if you make more doing the podcast?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, my feelings are hurt. No.
I mean, like, that's not going to fill like 30 to 40 hours a week of my time.
Yeah, I know it. I totally understand. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Join us next week while we talk about Doctor Who Series 2, Episode 4. The name is escaping me. The Girl in the Fireplace.
Girl in the Fireplace. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that. Okay, join us next time, guys. Bye.
See you then.